Thanks for joining us for Channel 2 News at 5:30. I'm Claudine Ewing. The restart of student loan payments has begun. In fact, student loans started accruing interest on September 1st. The federal government had given people a break during the pandemic, but now the time to pay is here. Joining me now is Jacob Channel, a senior economist and student loan repayment expert from LendingTree. Thanks for joining me today. There are so many people who are impacted by this, and for those with student loans who have not made a payment in the last 3 years, what is the recommendation and what should they know about interest rates?
Sure. So, like it or not, today is officially the day when we're going to start seeing student loan payments resume. Not only are payments resuming, but interest is back in effect. That's been in a pause. That's been paused for about 3 years, but it actually started last month. So I think the best piece of advice I can offer to people is just refamiliarize yourself with where you stand. Log back into your student loan account, figure out here's how much I owe, here's what my interest rate is, here's what my monthly payment would be, and then start budgeting in order to make that payment. The one thing you absolutely do not want to do in this situation is just bury your head in the sand and hope and pray that this all magically goes away on its own, because while there is an on-ramp for people who can't afford to pay right away, while there are some protections for student loan borrowers who can't afford to pay right away, in the long term, if you neglect this, you're really going to open yourself up for kind of a world of hurt insofar as the value of the loan's going to increase, and it's just going to be harder for you to pay it back. So figure out where you stand and don't neglect it. That's my advice right now.
Actually, that's some very good advice. Now, many people who now have to repay loans may have a hard time making payments. So what can be done if the payment is just too high?
Sure. So I think that the really nice thing about what the current Department of Education is trying to do is make student loans more affordable across the board. And one thing that has been helpful in the past and hopefully in the future will continue to be helpful are income-driven repayment plans. So these plans exist if you've got federally backed student loan debt, which the vast majority of people with student loan debt have. And with these programs, like their name implies, depending on factors like your income, you could potentially qualify to get on an income-driven repayment plan that, among other things, lowers your monthly payments and just makes it easier for you to pay back what you borrowed. Now, these plans aren't automatic. In most cases anyway. So it is something you do have to apply for. Thankfully, the application process should only take you about 10-15 minutes or so. So it's not the most difficult thing in the world, but it is something that you've got to be proactive about. So if you are struggling or think you're going to struggle, look at getting on an income-driven repayment plan, because they can really make a world of difference when it comes to paying back your student loan debt.
And you already touched on this, so are there any other programs to help with student loan debt? Also, can loans be deferred? And also, when it comes to New York State, does anything stand out to you?
Yeah, so I think, generally speaking, New York State is a state where student loan debt is a little bit higher than average, a little bit higher than what you might find in other places. And that really, New York State's obviously a big place and there's a lot of diversity within it. So not everyone's going to have a particularly high loan balance, but some people here do. And that's just important to keep in mind, especially when you are trying to budget. Remember, not everyone is the same. Your budget might not look exactly the same as somebody else's. In terms of other plans that are available, there are a lot of different options out there, and they really will depend on an individual's specific circumstances. So for example, while broad student loan forgiveness is off the table, at least for the time being, there may be some other more targeted forms of student loan forgiveness or student aid for those, for example, who have serious disabilities that prevent them from working, or maybe teachers who work at low-income schools. So if you are confused, if you do want to learn more, it's really simple. Just reach out to your student loan servicer or to studentaid.gov. Say, hey, look, this is my situation. What kind of programs might be available for me? And then, like I mentioned earlier, you're going to want to be proactive. Make sure that you're actively applying for things, that you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's, and that you're not just burying your head in the sand and hoping this all goes away. Because at the end of the day, the more proactive you are, the better chances you'll have of getting the help that you need. And if you, just ignore it and pretend that this will all go away or hope this will all go away without you doing anything, like I mentioned earlier, you can really put yourself in a bad situation in the long run.
You're right about that. Nobody wants to be put in a jam. Jacob Channel, senior economist and student loan repayment expert with LendingTree. Thanks so much for joining us.